Hey guys, I know it's been quite a while since I last made a video, and to be honest, that's actually because I've kind of just been in a huge rut in general with black metal. I pretty much skipped out on like all of 2019. I was just feeling like pretty burnt out, just from, between studying and working and all of that lovely stuff, but since we're all in a pandemic and trapped inside, I decided, maybe it's a good time to get back into it. And also, I was on YouTube and I noticed that I had over 100 subscribers, which is kind of a cool milestone. I mean, I never really started this channel with the intent that a lot of people would be watching it. It was just kind of intended as a platform for me to just talk about stuff that I'm listening to or things that I'm interested in with other friends of mine who are also listening to that kind of music. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Thanks, guys. It's awesome that there are lots of people out there who are interested in what I'm doing. So, when I saw that, I basically decided, why not make a video? I want to check in with you guys and see what's going on and have a beer with you and talk about a couple of the things that I've been listening to recently. This is a beer from one of my favorite local breweries. They're also one of the better known ones around here, Flying Monkeys. And this is the Freak Show Crush Hazy IPA, which is a New England IPA. This has like 7 different hops, and it's also unfiltered, which gives it its haze. And traditionally, I know that the haze in East Coast IPA, or haze in New England IPAs comes from usually like an insane amount of dry hopping, but in this case, it's unfiltered, and that's why it's hazy. You can see it's got a really nice color here. By the way, this is actually my new favorite way to pour beer because if I let it settle, the head will settle down and then I'll top it up, pouring straight down the middle, and it'll actually give me a nice real like dense concentrated head. So don't worry, this is not like, that's not my best example of a pour here. Let's get into it. So like I said, I was really out of it in 2019 in terms of new releases in black metal. And you may have noticed that I haven't really been that active in general. I haven't been doing blog posts, I haven't really been making videos. And so what I have here is like I kind of took the day today to catch up on 2020 because I'm a little late to the game, but it's only April, so there's still plenty of time to catch up on everything. And today a couple of releases have caught my eye, and the first one that I want to talk about is from Quebec, which, surprise, surprise, a lot of what I listen to is from Quebec. It is Noir comme ton coeur, which translates as Black Like Your Heart. And I'll be honest, when I first saw this come up, I was just scrolling through the metal archives. I honestly didn't want to click on it because I thought it was just going to be another one of those like DSBM albums or something like that, but I felt like, I have a lot of time on my hands, so I may as well check it out just to make sure. And so I went onto the page and like, honestly, this shit is really, really good. It's a little more polished than, I typically like for my taste, but it's honestly like really great Emperor worship kind of stuff and like touches of kind of Dimmu Borgir here and there. Just honestly tons and tons of influence from like 90s Norway. Honestly, influence from 90s Norway, let's be honest, that is not a very difficult thing to find in black metal. The thing that drove this over the top for me is just that the musicianship is killer. Like the bass lines on this album, guys, don't sleep on this. It is great. It's, like I said, Noir comme ton coeur, and I'll type that out. There's also going to be links in the description. This thing is like fucking awesome, so you should totally check this out. It came out in January a while ago, so actually it's interesting that not too many people have stumbled onto it yet. But I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about it, so, look it up, have a listen, let me know what you think. Another thing that I listened to a couple times today and I really enjoyed was the new album from Ifel which is, again, from Quebec. And the album title is Wakan, I think, W-A-Q-A-N. And this is an album that to me is really interesting because it's a very well thought out album. It's atmospheric black metal. It fades back and forth between. It talks about something that I think needs to be talked about more, and that is the status of First Nations people in Quebec. And the thing is, Ifel is not about Quebecois identity. It's not about, Quebec separationism or Quebecois nationalism. It's not about that at all. It's actually about anger at the colonists who came and really did a lot of horrible things to the First Nations people who were living in Quebec. Because we do a lot of talking about, Quebecois identity, but we don't really do a lot of talking about, like, dissonant opinions within that sphere, at least not in black metal. You don't really hear from that perspective a lot at all. This particular album is, I believe I read on the Bandcamp page that it's a continuation of the last album, but it actually tells the story of Etienne Brule, who was the first European believed to have set foot in the area that I live in right now. In general, he was a very important person in terms of the colonization of the New World over here. The thing is, he actually spent quite a lot of time living with First Nations people here. He lived with the Huron. Legend has it that he actually betrayed the French crown, and then he also betrayed his First Nations allies, and ended up being murdered for that. And I believe it was the year 1630, they say possibly 1633. We know now that it might have been closer to 1632, but in general, we just can't, there's no way to confirm. The legend was that he was tied to a torture pole, and that he was dismembered, and he was killed, and some sources say that he was even eaten by members of the tribe that he had previously lived with, and who he betrayed by, I believe it was trading with the Seneca. I don't have it in front of me, so if there's any details that I'm missing or that I don't have correct me on that. And that is actually what this album is about, and it's a super cool story. Not if you're Etienne Brule, but the concept of this album is that the slights against the native people in Quebec have not been forgotten, and that they will be remembered, and that there are people alive today who carry pain and hurt and scarring from the way that First Nations people have traditionally been treated in Canada and in Quebec specifically. And so it's a very angry album, but it's also a brooding album, and it's just in general, like I said like twice already, super well put together. And it is something that I think is good food for thought as well, both philosophically and politically. It's something that needs to be talked about more in black metal. It makes for like a great theme for an album because it's just angry and there's a lot of pain and hurt there. And those are things that translate really well through black metal. But as well, I mean, if Quebec were to secede from Canada, did anybody ask First Nations people what they might think about that? I mean, typically the answer is no. There are cases even where, like up in James Bay, the James Bay Cree have actually made it very, very clear that it would take really extraordinary measures to make them part of a separated sovereign Quebec. That's something that could turn violent. This is a really complicated topic in general, and if you want to know more about it, then I actually have this book here, Canada's Odyssey by Peter H. Russell, and this is by far the best overview of kind of the history of Canada, as far as it concerns at least the settlers that lived here, that became kind of the Canada that we know today, as well as Quebec, as well as First Nations people. Russell considers them to be the three pillars, so this book is about the history of kind of those three actors within Canada's history. Yeah, like I said, super interesting subject. It makes for a super interesting album, and a very educational subject matter too, because this is something, like I said, you don't hear enough about, and we should really be talking about more. On top of all that, also, this album is just brilliant, so, like, really there's no downside here to giving it a listen. Some other things I've been listening to, I've got, like, a list right here, and Hedonist and Spectral Voice just put out a new split. I was listening to that just before this video, and it's really great. Although I've only listened to it once, my opinion might change. None of this is in any order, by the way. I listened to the new Dragged into Sunlight today as well, Terminal Aggressor 2, but this is an interesting one because I heard the real album is actually coming out later this year, and they actually released this because Prosthetic Records is a piece of shit, and they wanted to get out their contract. So, I mean, this was a really great listen, but if that's not the best that they're gonna be able to offer this year, then, like, that's really fucking cool too. The fact that we might get actually two really great releases out of this is something that's really exciting to me. I listened to the new Obsidian Grave today. I posted about that on my story on Instagram. I don't know if any of you are following me on there, but if you want to follow me, I'm 4SA4GR. I actually listened to the Lurker of Chalice compilation that was released back in January. Good stuff too. But in general, like I said, I'm kind of dragging behind on this year because I really only got into it today. On my list here, I've got like maybe 20 albums that I kind of like either listened to in depth or skimmed today. But honestly, what are your favorite albums of 2020 so far? I really want to know, because honestly, like from my brief overview, like 2020 has kind of been wank. If you have any great releases that you've loved and you really want to talk about them, like totally send them my way. I'm gonna be devoting a lot of extra time to listening to a lot of stuff that I've kind of been missing out on so far. So yeah, send me your recommendations, and it was good to catch up with you guys. Hope you guys enjoy the pandemic as much as possible. See ya!